Welcome to That's What She Said, where we'll spill the tea on women empowerment in the Great Lakes Bay region with your host, Christiana Malacara.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of That's What She Said with me, Christiana Malacara. I want to say thank you, as always. Thank you so much for tuning in every week in the many ways that are possible to tune into That's What She Said on the radio waves Saturday morning at 8 a.m. or Sunday evening at 6. I love that 6 o'clock time slot on a Sunday. It's just a really nice way to kind of reset and motivate yourself for the week to come. I know I use my Sundays as almost like a prep day, right? Preparing for the week to come. That's just how my calendar works with my little ones and my family and my work schedule. And Sundays are just a really good way to prep. But before we move into that word prep, the other ways that you can listen are basically anywhere that you tune into your favorite podcast, which is obviously That's What She Said, right? So Spotify, Apple, and Audible. And then if you see our faces, you are most likely watching on either YouTube or when we drop our live episodes on Facebook at 1:30 on Thursdays. Let's go back to that word prep. The act of preparing, right? That is something that you have to consciously think of, or there's that abrupt, like, oh my goodness, I have to prep for this right now. But it's almost, is there truly an abrupt prep? So when we're talking about preparing ourselves, I write things down throughout the week between That's What She Said days and just find words that are inspiring or make me question what's happening around me. So this act of preparing, when we're preparing for maybe a child to come in, if we are preparing for a next level in our relationship, if we're preparing to enter a new job position, there's always that prep time that is questionable. What should I do? What should I do? How do I do this? And just from personal experience, asking questions to those who have went through that experience has been the best way. And what I wrote down in my journal was, how does one prepare? And it's finding people that have gone through that experience and asking questions. If that is a healthy, positive experience or something that may be challenging, it's about asking questions. So how does one prepare? By asking questions to someone who has experienced it already. And then moving forward. That all takes confidence in yourself, putting yourself out there. And that's what I challenge you to do between today and next That's What She Said day, is to question, how can I prepare for this? And who is in my circle, or who do I need to pull into my circle to assist me in preparing? Do not be afraid to ask questions. Speaking of questions, we have a guest with us today who I have tons of questions for. She's absolutely amazing. I attended an event with her fairly recently, and it was interesting. Lindsey Bulgrien, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here.
I know we've talked about this for a while, and we pass each other in the community and various fun events. Yes. But how might the community know you?
I think that I'm visibly identifiable as the woman who usually always has a purple or pink scarf on her head. So if anybody ever sees me out and about and or on the news or in the media, I am usually always interviewed and questioned because I founded and lead and direct Saginaw County's sexual assault nurse examiner program, or like the forensic nursing program that's here within our community.
Oh, so 2 questions there. Why the purple or pink head covering?
I am Muslim, and purple and pink are just my colors. So that's just the ones I choose.
Power colors.
Yeah.
Okay. And then explain this organization to us in depth, please.
Okay. So Michigan Forensic Examiners is the name of our organization. And my goal was always to just create an army of trained, specialized nurses that are always going to be readily available if anybody who is a victim of violence, specifically rape, sexual assault, physical abuse, sexual child abuse, or child neglect, We are the ones who are usually called in to do an in-depth, specialized form of an exam on their bodies. And we're also trained to then collect evidence off of their bodies like it's a crime scene. And then we kind of help with the aftermath, resources, medications, kind of go through all of that with people.
You founded this.
I did.
Why?
So I was a part of the prior program that existed here, and it just was really struggling. And that is not unique to our area. These types of nurses and programs are very hard to sustain nationwide. And because of the way funding is allocated by the federal and state level, everybody kind of forms their own little county silos. And it's hard to grow or to share, and there's always just like territorial issues because of funding. I grew up in the thumb of Michigan in Sanilac County. Nothing like this exists in the thumb. And if it does, it's at such a level that it's barely there. But that does not mean that people are not victims of violence in those counties. They just have no options to seek care. If anything, they're burdened by saying you need to drive to Flint, Saginaw, Bay City, things like that, which to me is unbelievable that we would expect somebody to do that. So the prior program was kind of struggling. It was really hard to maintain staff. A majority of my staff have other full-time jobs. And this is an on-call type thing. You just have to be ready to respond.
Be available.
It's hard. It is a hard job. So I made a program that was mobile, so we could kind of go to where patients or victims present. And I made it like multi-county. Therefore, we can kind of grow, expand, and sustain staff in different areas, kind of trying to make that a little bit more easy. And the model that we used has been a great success.
When did you start this?
So we went live seeing patients March of 2023.
And how has this grown, and have you seen success?
Yes. So we, over the last 3 years, I think we now have, I have 22 different partnership contracts with different community spaces. So we have partnerships with every rural emergency room in the thumb. We are partnered with the community's Underground Railroad is our very first 24-hour medical suite access. We have a specific room built just to see victims of violence that only my nurses go into. We meet people there. And that's the only space that's available 24 hours a day outside of a hospital. But we also are partnered with all of the Great Lakes Bay Health Clinic sites. They will accept anybody. You don't have to be a patient of theirs. You can walk right in and say, hey, I've been hurt. I want to be seen by, somebody for this. And we picked those clinics specifically because they're on bus routes. Transportation is a huge issue. Tried as much as possible to streamline eliminating barriers for victims. So over the course of 3 years, we are now up to 22 partnerships across 5 counties. We also now go down to Owasso and Shiawassee County. Wow. The first year, we responded to about 63 requests for care. Last year, we were up to 180. And as of right now, I think we've seen about 60 so far this year.
This is a heavy topic, and also a big, almost, I'm not sure if burden's the right word, because you're doing this out of an act of love. But being on call, organizing multiple people across this large spectrum of the state, to be honest, where did this start? How did you get into the space of helping people with this specifically?
So I originally, when I was working in Deckerville, Michigan in 2014, so a long time ago, I've been a nurse for 20 years. The state had funded us to go through the training to become a sexual assault nurse examiner. I did the training, but after you do the bookwork portion, you have to find an experienced nurse to then, do your training with actual people.
Yeah.
In the thumb, no such thing really exists. It was so difficult to finish that and be a sexual assault nurse examiner. So I just kind of let it lapse. Then later on, in like 2021, I had moved to Saginaw County and was like, I think I'll look into seeing, now that I'm in a space with more people, there probably is a bigger program or something going on. So I kind of rejoined into that world, retook the training, did all the things. And then once I got my feet wet and I really started doing the work, I was so overwhelmed with the need that existed that I just couldn't look away. And it like kept me up at night. It was such a problem that I wanted to try to help fix. Mostly being the barriers that existed and people being able to get this care or even know that this care existed is like a really big deal.
When you decided to be a nurse, did you know that this was the avenue that you wanted to come down? What was the original plan?
No. Well, I originally was just going to get my associate's degree in nursing and then never, ever go back to school.
Oh.
I was married at the time. I was like, I'm going to have babies. I'm going to have my forever home. And that's just the way my life was going to be. Not how it ended up. I ended up getting my bachelor's and then my master's. And then I was a nurse practitioner. And then I moved out of the country. And then I came back. And then so if you had asked me 10 years ago if this is where I ever foresaw myself, no, absolutely not. It's just kind of fell in my lap. Once I was exposed to it, it just stuck and I'm good at it. And I love what I do. And I know that seems super strange to people because when you tell them what you do, they're kind of uncomfortable and like, oh, it's got to be like so hard. And it is super duper hard work, but it's also very rewarding. And if you find something you're good at, you should stick with it. And I think that as of right now, we're doing a pretty good job.
That's a good piece of advice.
Yeah.
Find something you're good at. Just stick with it.
Yeah.
When there's two different trajectories here, right? That you had originally planned.
Yeah.
And then where we're at today.
Yeah.
That shift is quite dramatic. You said you left the country, you came back, you became inspired.
Yeah.
Then you saw essentially a void and you were like, nope, I'm not sleeping at night because of that. That needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
Are you, during that shift, were you okay with that? Or was it more or less like, I don't know what's next, let's see what happens?
It was that. So, I mean, honestly, I just feel like it was like divine intervention because every step of the way to forming Michigan Forensics, I had another full-time job. I was doing other things, but it was easy to get it set up. Things would just kind of fall right in front of me, like people who I needed to connect with, there they were, or just it just all fit together at the right time. And then it just came into being. And so I just kind of felt like I'm just going to let this play out and see where it goes. Like I'm a realistic person. I don't ever want to continue to exist in this program or have this if it's not needed anymore, or if something better comes along or whatever, or if it just was an absolute disaster and fell apart from the beginning, I would let go. But I just was like, let's see how it goes. And things just kept happening and it kept improving. And so I just let it play its course.
Let it exist.
Yeah.
Wow. What you're doing is absolutely amazing. Is there a website that you can share?
Yeah. So MichiganForensicExaminers.com.
Wonderful. And you found this and managed this program and managed the nurses and the staff. What does that look like for you?
It's exhausting because we're still obviously like a very young program or organization, I should say. So we are still waiting on like federal funding. So
for you.
Yeah. So for me, my day-to-day is mostly the administrative work within the organization, but I still say I'm the CEO. I don't really do CEO things because I don't have the time or energy to do that. I mostly just make sure the program is running. But I have a husband who does everything at home, and without him, I would never, ever be able to have been successful in this. So that's one thing. And yeah, I mean, I do a lot of the on-call myself if our staff is on vacation. We have one on maternity leave. So I still do a lot of the patient care on top of doing all of the background follow-up with patients, billing, payroll.
So in your role, there's this admin and kind of like you said, like the CEO structure part of the position.
Yeah.
But then on the other end, you're working with patients.
Yes.
Is that
I'm
the
still
right term?
doing
Patients?
everything. Yeah.
Okay. So you're working with patients, and the women that are coming in are at the most vulnerable they've ever been.
Correct.
Is that
Yes.
good to say?
Mhm.
Okay. How is it that interaction is existing healthy? How does that, and what does that look like for someone?
From my perspective, like in my role or for
Yes.
the patient?
I guess let's do that in two parts. So from your role first.
So I think this job is not easy, and it takes a very special person or a unique person who can tolerate and be subjected to that type of secondary trauma on a daily basis. And we have had nurses who have had to step back because of mental health. And I have like a wellness program that we're signed up with for my nurses to always take advantage of, because secondary trauma in our job is huge. So one, I think you just have to be the right person to kind of be able to have these real conversations with people at their lowest and worst. And then you just have to have a very healthy support system and coping and like outlets that kind of help you move through those things. And also therapy is never a bad thing. So
We hear that a lot on That's What She Said.
Yeah.
We advocate strongly for therapy.
yes.
So let's flip the script. If we are that person who's sitting in the chair and sought out these services, what does that look like for them?
I mean, I hope it's a good experience for them in overall after a horrible experience. So, I mean, we are always partnered with an advocacy program. So whenever anybody who ever seeks care, the nurse and the advocate that present, we're trained to be very trauma informed. We're going to use language that is more appropriate than the grumpy doctor who's been on a 24-hour shift and just wants to go home. Words really matter when you're instructing people to just even, move or shift their body on the table. We call it a table. It's not a bed. We call this a drape, not a sheet. Just things like that people don't even think of.
Wow.
Those words can be really triggering for somebody who's just been assaulted. So that's why, I mean, yes, doctors and ERs and other nurses in a pinch can do these exams for people, but we really want to strive to have the specialized people present to help those people.
So there's a lot of empathy and underlying understanding of where they're coming from,
Right.
and what may have just occurred.
Right.
But convincing her and being that empathetic person and saying, everything's going to be okay.
Right. Yep.
What kind of toll is that taking on you?
What kind of toll does that take on me?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's different for each patient. So we see kids now too. We predominantly are the sole provider for the pediatric population in the county as well. Those cases hit different. They're harder because these are just such more complex cases, and the amount of child-on-child abuse, even within like families, you don't really know that that's such a big thing, and it is so common and it happens so much. And like, how do parents deal with that? I don't know. I don't know how parents can. So like things like that, I really have trouble because I am only there for a snapshot in time in that one moment with this person. And then I help them connect with the resources that are necessary. But I don't ever get to really know how things go, or like, and so I worry a lot about people and wanting to make sure that, they did get the support they need. They did need, I follow up with a lot of people. I refer people to primary care offices. We connect them with gynecology and OB. We always refer to therapy. So yeah, the toll it takes on me is mostly just I worry a lot, and depending on the severity of an assault, I just am angry a lot with our world and how violent and disturbing it can be. And that's why I advocate for therapy. So you can hash that out, because that's not something that I'm going to be able to fix. But I feel like what I do have to offer in people in those moments is at least giving a little bit of hope back. Yeah.
And that conversation of this is a part of your story,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I feel like that portion is really important to advocate, especially, on this platform of there's little blurps on your timeline, right?
Mhm.
Just this little portion.
Mhm.
And this may be one of it, but that's not the end result.
Sure.
And I think that that's important to say.
Mhm.
So we have just a couple minutes before the first segment ends here, but what is a piece of advice that you would give the woman who should be reaching out to you?
You're not alone. This is happening to so many people in your life that aren't talking about it. This is something that has been existing and will continue to exist until major systemic change occurs. Guilt and shame and all of the different emotions that come with, ever being a victim of violence or assault. Don't let that hold you back. There are people who are here, who are ready 24 hours a day to help take care of you. And you don't ever have to deal with any of these things by yourself.
And where can we learn more?
You can go to the website, MichiganForensicExaminers.com. And then we also have a Facebook and an Instagram page.
Well, thank you for what you do.
Yeah, of course.
It's one of those things where it's those topics that you are almost, you're sad that it exists, but glad that we have Lindsey Bulgrien out there to save the world. So we are going to take a quick break and we'll be right back to dig a little bit deeper on, we covered so much, but on school and going to school and secondary trauma and the fact that words matter. So don't go too far. You're listening to That's What She Said with Christiana Malacara.
That's What She Said with Christiana Malacara is back. Now let's spill the tea.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to That's What She Said. Yes, we are spilling the tea on women empowerment. And this week's guest is Lindsey Bulgrien. Lindsey, she is just doing amazing things out in the Great Lakes Bay region and beyond through the Michigan Forensic Examiners. Please check them out. Be familiar with them. Go to their website. Just a Google away. Thank you for being here today.
Yes, thanks for having me again.
This is very informative. So the listeners, if you haven't tuned into the first half yet and you're just hopping on, the way to tune into that is on YouTube. YouTube is the best route, or where you get your podcast format. But to carry the job of founding and essentially working as this, the head and the CEO of Michigan Forensic Examiners, that is that's a heavy topic, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
But all the time I see you, you're smiling. What is it that brings you joy?
I'm not a very exciting person. I really enjoy just rotting on my couch or in bed with my cats and a book, and that rejuvenates me.
I love how you led that.
Yeah.
I'm not a very exciting person.
I'm not. So yeah, when I go out and I do events or social things, I feel like I'm pretty introverted. And so to be put into a position of leading this organization has been actually quite difficult, because I truly am a homebody, and going out and doing things has been a difficult thing for me to push through, but I'm doing it. And
yeah, advocating for an entire organization takes work.
It does. It was a lot of work. Yeah.
So your social meter is smaller than most?
I mean,
or do you think
I think I'm average, but I wouldn't generally go out seeking, I don't like to be in the spotlight and different things. So, yeah.
Rotting on your couch.
Yes, I really like to rot on my couch and in my bed.
In the first half, you had mentioned that for someone to absorb secondary trauma,
Mm-hmm.
They need to have a good and healthy support system. What does your support system look like?
So I have an amazing husband who does a lot of our stuff at home. He loves to cook, so he cooks for me, and I don't have to deal with that. So that's fabulous. And I feel like my family, they all are very, very supportive of the organization that I've been trying to build. And so they understand, if I'm available or if I'm not available, and just, hey, I have to step back this weekend because I'm tired and I just want to hang out at home. So I feel like that's just not an extra like stress that I've had to deal with, which I have tried not to take advantage take advantage of. I feel like very blessed that everybody around me has been very, very supportive in what I've been trying to do.
So let's go back to this word secondary trauma, because I've heard it before, but I guess I've never placed career paths in that with, like kind of, I see it tethered off, right?
Yeah.
These little, think bubbles of what causes secondary trauma and then how do we deal with it? How do you define that?
So secondary trauma is also called vicarious trauma, and it's very prevalent in the medical world. So like think ER staff, people who are just constantly exposed to horrible things. Not only is it traumatic to the person that it's happening to, but when you're just subject to this over and over and over, no matter how hard you try to compartmentalize, it does attach, or it seeps into us and cracks that we try not to have. And then you carry that with you, and sometimes it just really, it causes different types of burnout and, emotional distress that you just don't really know what to do with.
Have you ever experienced this burnout?
Yes, of
Can
course.
you unpack that for us?
I mean, I think when I said earlier, I don't feel like as sad and depressed. I just feel like sometimes I want to explode with rage because of the things I see and the types of people who are vulnerable, how they get taken advantage of, or, just the violence that exists in our world that people don't know exists, that people don't want to talk about, that people just want to turn a blind eye to, when it's literally all around us. And yeah, it just makes me very angry. So to me, that's how it presents.
When you experience this anger, what is something that kind of grounds you back?
I enjoy reading, not like fantasy books, not real life books. I used to love novels, but then they were like too real life, right? Because they're usually based, it's like could be a real life story. So now I'm like, I need to read fairy smut and get into a different world where this isn't real, and I can just get lost for a little while and, forget about the terrible things that happen in this world. Yeah.
Do you ever experience closure?
Sometimes. I have a great example. Yesterday, I testified in court, and it was on a case that I did last June. And I was one of their last witnesses. And when I was done, I was able to see the victim and give her a big hug. She's doing much better now. She's doing great. And then I was messaged by the prosecutor last night that the perpetrator was found guilty on all charges. So that was really good. That's like a good weight that's lifted off of you, knowing that like, wow. And it's not always, it's very rare that you get to see that whole thing through, because a lot of cases either won't go to court, or they get pled out, or, you just never get to kind of reconnect with that victim. So that was great. That really made my day.
That's a big win.
It is.
Yeah. For you, the organization, but like that portion of closure.
Mm-hmm.
I can relate to that. News radio's aspect of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what does this look like for you when there's no closure?
I mean, it's really hard. I do go to therapy to try to talk out, different things. And also I have to be mindful of, some of the stories or things that I see. You don't want to just dump that on other random people, because then you're kind of traumatizing them, right? So you do have to be strategic on who you need to talk these things out with, and, figure out what to do. I mean, the best therapy would be exercising. I used to be a big runner. I used to be really into yoga. I've kind of gotten away from that, but I know if I did that more, that would probably be a lot more healing for my body, and let some of that anger out. But
So when we're talking about, I'm trying not to, but when we're going back to secondary trauma and we have a listener who's thinking, hold on, that might be me.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's not at work. Maybe it's at home. I mean, this trauma can experience it, be experienced in many places. And she's listening and she realizes this might be me.
Mm-hmm.
What is a piece of advice you would give her to kind of acknowledge it and then move forward?
I mean, I would look it up. I mean, just Google secondary or vicarious trauma, see if that fits you and, kind of what you're experiencing. And they'll give you lots of little tidbits, but ultimately, depending on what's causing that trauma, you have to kind of be proactive in eliminating it. Or if it's your job, finding those ways to still work amongst it while surviving that secondary trauma.
So the way that we interacted fairly recently was at, let's call it a paint party.
Yeah.
And we're adding this educational element to the organization, right?
Yeah.
What are some pieces of advice that you would give to a woman to educate her about, I guess, the services, but like also what she should know? What is the must knows?
I mean, I think the must knows for every female or I guess anybody, it doesn't even have to be a woman or a female, but like, I don't know why we're so uncomfortable to talk about sex. I don't know why our society and culture is so uncomfortable to talk about our bodies and our body parts. I don't know why it's been normalized for children to call their private parts names that aren't real. This is allowing people to abuse us. If we grow up not knowing what that part of our body is even called, how can we tell somebody did something to it? That's a huge thing since I started seeing children. If they call it a cookie,
Mm-hmm.
and then they tell somebody something random about a cookie, nobody knows that this is something that shouldn't have happened to this child, right? We need to start calling our body parts their body parts. You have a knee, you have an elbow, you have a nose, and you have other parts. They have names. And then what's normal and what's not normal. And I feel like teenagers, they're one of the most high risk age groups to be assaulted. Healthy relationships, what's normal when having sex, what's normal, when can you say no if you start, but then change your mind? Is that okay? Yeah, that's not giving consent. Consent is a big deal. We should be teaching our children about it. We should be talking about it. Yeah, if I could get anything in this world, it would just be that people can normalize talking about your bodies and about sex so that it can't be weaponized against us because we don't know.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great piece of advice. And when I'm watching you talk, there's this strong amount of care and passion. Where's the root of that coming from? Like the root of it.
I don't really know. I have an idea. So when I was growing up, I have family members who I didn't really know were abused as children until I was older. But then when I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness, this really affected their entire life and affected their mentality their entire life and all of the mental health issues they had their entire life. And it just made me deeply, deeply sad that they never received help or acknowledgement that any of this had ever happened to them. On top of that, when I was in high school, one of my classmates was killed in a domestic violence. She had been dating a boy older than us, and he would routinely hurt her, but she wouldn't leave. And then when we graduated high school, they had moved in together, and then she died. That, I think, really affected me way more than I acknowledged at that time. And I think with those things just kind of like in the background of my mind, knowing people who this has affected, knowing people who needed help, who maybe didn't get it at the time. And then when I was brought back into it, 5 years ago, I don't know, it just like ignited something in me that like, this is a way bigger deal. It's a way bigger problem than what we know exists. And like something needs to be done. And so I want to try to help.
So these issues were around you without you knowing it.
Right. And I can guarantee you they're around every single person and they don't know it.
In high school, when you found out that your friend had passed away,
Mm-hmm.
What were some of those initial feelings?
Well, I mean, she was kind of like an outlier friend. She wasn't one of like our main friend group, but we had all tried in one way or another to like offer help. He ultimately did get put in prison. I don't know. I just feel like at the time we were shocked, but not shocked, because she kept getting hurt over and over and over. But just the way that she was hurt, her head had been hit against something forcefully, and it was a slow bleed. So she was fine for days after it happened until she just passed out and then never woke back up. So like that in itself was also traumatic. I was 18, 19 years old. And then to see, you know, one of your classmates just die like that, it was traumatic. Yeah.
I asked that question because now when you're in the room with patients, you're walking out with also, I want to help her, but then an element of anger.
Yeah, that's why I told you I'm like full of rage all the time. I'm working at it.
A She-Hulk over here.
Yeah.
So where does the anger come from now, though? Like,
again, I think it's just knowing that there are so many things at play systemically and just that are just so far out of our control as individual people. And it's just going to take time for new policies, for new types of education, for new norms to be created before we see a shift in how women are visualized and treated. Yeah.
What's the website again?
MichiganForensicExaminers.com.
I keep asking because I know we get people tuning in at different times. And so I want to make sure that everyone is receiving this information. So where do you see the organization growing and going next?
Well, right now we're waiting on funds. So we're just maintaining. But we would eventually, I mean, our model is very effective. And we have been asked at the state level if we could potentially trial our model up north, because again, it's rural. They struggle with sustainability for this type of care. So I think if we ever got funded and backing by the state, we would grow. We'd probably have little branches of us throughout the state if it was needed.
The way that you talk about the organization and yourself is so intermingling. They're almost one and the same when we're discussing this today, which is, it's not a bad thing.
Okay.
Not a bad thing. But is this something that you see as your legacy?
I don't know. I mean, I would love to not be the leader of it and just be more of a caregiver in it. I don't know how hard that role will be to give up if I'm actually given that choice. I think that it's come far, and I would love to just, I mean, my heart is with giving care to patients. Like that's where I feel like I do the best.
The boots on the ground, not the admin behind the desk.
Yes. I don't like having to do payroll. Like I hate it. I would much rather just go be with people. So yeah, it scares me that I might be a little bit too intertwined with the organization. But I mean, if we did grow enough, I would definitely not want to be the leader of it forever.
But you built it.
I did build it, yes.
There's this thing that women do. And when they talk about work, they say we, right? Because we're so attached to what we do.
Yeah.
What is it? What is something that I'm trying to figure out how to say this to you. Was there a point where there was not a we in the work environment? It was more or less like, I do this thing and that's that. And this is me.
Well, I mean, this is, I think, a very American problem. When I moved overseas with my husband, I couldn't work because my nursing license didn't exist there. And the identity crisis that I had, because here we solely identify with our job, right? And I was like, okay, well, I'm not that thing right now. I'm not a nurse. What am I? Who am I? And that was like shocking to me that this identity crisis existed because I latched on to being a nurse so hard.
Why do you think you did that?
I don't know. I think that's just how we're normalized here. I just feel like we are our jobs because we work so hard here. I mean, now it's impossible to separate myself because, yeah, I built this thing from the ground up, and like I feel like it's only sitting on my shoulders until we do grow enough for me to offset it. So I do feel like I am intertwined with it, but I don't even remember what the question was now.
Do you think that you created this business subconsciously thinking you're coming from an environment where you had no little work identity, and now we're coming back and we're like, I'm going to create something that's mine, and this is not going to be taken away. This is mine.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think I was like, I wanted to be able to build something that I thought was going to be sustainable. So to give you some background, because the state and federal government funds a lot of these types of programs, the money all goes through advocacy programs, not medical programs. And so they were overseeing medical people. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. They should be overseen by medical personnel. It's a medical thing. And so in that aspect, yes, I wanted to have full control because I thought that's the only way it's going to work. And it worked big time.
Yeah.
So I just think the way that it's been modeled throughout the years needs to shift.
That I think that gives me and our listeners too, hopefully, some better understanding of how this operates.
Mm-hmm.
So when you said you experienced this almost identity of like, who am I? What am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
What did you come up with?
Well, at the time I was really into yoga. So I opened a yoga studio over there where I was living, and I was living in Palestine at the time.
Was that fun?
It was super fun.
Sounds
like
it.
It was challenging and fun and all the things, and that existed for like a year or so, and then we ended up moving into Jordan. Then again, there was a whole nother identity, but then I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just focus more on learning the language that's spoken around me 24 hours a day. And so I became mostly just a student of Arabic at that time, and then COVID hit, and then we moved home. So
when you were in Palestine, what is something that you learned?
That America is in a bubble. And I think that you can really learn a lot from other cultures in this world, and that what you're told by our media is not very often the truth as far as how they depict other people.
I'm interested in a Palestine woman passing along advice to you. Mm-hmm. Did that ever happen? And what did you take away from that?
Well, what kind of advice are you thinking? I mean, I learned a lot living there, just like, and how they live their life and how different it is from us.
What could be a takeaway that you could share?
I mean, I think it's beautiful how other cultures still maintain a very close-knit communal family. They all still live within the same home. Where we lived, it was very normal for you to have the base home that the parents lived in, and as you had kids that became adults, they would just add a level for those kids. And here we're like, oh God, I can't wait to move out of my parents' house, or I want my independence, and we are pushed so hard for this sense of individualism. But at what cost? You lose that village, that whole village that you need around you to help care for your children and, make your life easier is gone in our model here in America for most people.
Yeah.
And over there, they're just one big, huge family unit forever. And it's beautiful. And like, they don't have daycare, and they don't have a lot of problems that we have here.
I think that is most definitely something that we need to cover on another episode.
Oh, I'll be back.
So as we wrap it up, what is one piece of advice you would give to a woman in the Great Lakes Bay region?
You are awesome and fierce. You're never alone. You're beautiful the way you are, and own your body, and don't ever let anybody else do anything to you that you don't want.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And that is Lindsey Bulgrien, and that's what she said.